So thank you so much for being on, Elijah. I really appreciate that. So we were talking a little bit right before we went on. You mentioned some stuff you did in New York as well. I love talking about when an artist that I kind of know, or I've been, for the last couple of days, I've been kind of like looking at your content and researching you and stuff. And then they say, oh, and I also did this in New York. And I'm like, oh, cool. It gives me more stuff to draw from. And that's always like pretty awesome. So you said you did some acting when you were in New York. How long ago was that? Was that something recent?
No, well, I mean, I got to New York in 2008.
Okay.
And so I had, I worked for a company called Paradigm. And so they had gotten me some really great auditions and stuff.
Yeah.
One of them was for the Capital One Viking commercials.
Wow.
So, I mean, those were great. So,
yeah.
And that led to different things. Like I did some promo for ESPN. I did some promo spots with Donald Gibbs, the ogre from the Revenge of the Nerd movies.
Oh,
the big, huge guy.
Yeah. Nice.
So yeah, it was fun. And then since then I did some some smaller movies, and I was really happy with a lot of the stuff I did there. And we can talk about some of that, but
sure. So, I mean, I know I've heard, a lot of your music. It's really fantastic. I mean, you're a great singer, great player. And so let's go back a little bit. Let's go back to your, where are you originally from?
I'm originally from Akron, Ohio.
Oh, wow.
Northeast Ohio, not far from Cleveland. Kind of, and near Canton, Ohio, and it was a great town to grow up in. I loved growing up there. Kind of Midwest, but you're still really pretty close to New York,
right?
When I would tell people I'm from Ohio, they'd be like, "Oh, well, I have an aunt in Kansas," and I'm like, that Ohio almost touches New York, except for a little bit of Pennsylvania. I mean, like, we're not like that Midwest, but I feel like it was kind of like the beginning of the Midwest, like kind of the Midwest values are kind of.
Did you have a musical background, a musical family, I should say?
Well, not really. I mean, my mother was a great singer, and she sang in a church choir. And when I was a young man, I actually we were at a church picnic, and this band had my mom get up and sing.
Oh, wow.
And as a kid, you're like, what? But she was great. And she kind of grew up as a singer, like in a church and stuff. But as far as performing, really, I mean, just me and my family.
Yeah.
Everyone else was intelligent. So
same thing happened to me, actually. I'm the only one. I was definitely the oddball in my family, the only actor, the only musician, the only person that did anything. I married a girl from the Midwest.
All right.
Yeah, she's from Dixon, Illinois.
All right.
Small town, very small town. And it's just I mean, I think a lot of artists, that I talk to kind of were always kind of a little bit different, in their family. There was something else. And I mean, that's the artistic aesthetic, spirit, basically, that kind of comes out. Do you have brothers and sisters?
I do. I have the oldest sister, and she was a school teacher, and she taught Akron Public Schools for a long time, and mother of four. And my brother is a really intelligent computer kind of programmer guy, software specialist. And he's got 4 kids. And my little sister, she's a retired school teacher too, but she actually taught in the same district for a lot of years that we all went to school.
Oh, wow.
So that was pretty fun. And she's got 3 kids, and one of them just graduated. So, we're doing the whole watch them on the computer graduation thing.
Yeah, so crazy. Let me ask you about that, because a lot of one of the reasons why I started doing this show was because I was thinking to myself, how could I get in contact with a lot of artists and kind of like just keep the energy going, and maybe possibly give a platform to other artists that are sitting at home, just give them something else to kind of put on that they can actually share. And I thought, a really in-depth interview with an artist is something that you don't see too often, out there, so I thought this would be a really good thing. So that's why I kind of like decided to take this on. How are you dealing with this? What are some of the things that you're currently working on, or what's going on with that?
I mean, like you, I felt like there was something that we can be doing to entertain, and still entertain people, which is why I got into this from the very beginning. I mean, I didn't get into it, for the huge money I would make as a musician.
Right.
That didn't happen. But it was just to entertain people. That's the lowest common denominator for me. And about 8 weeks ago, I actually did my very first. I've been doing these Facebook free streaming concerts every Friday night. The first one I did was a tribute to Bill Withers. He had passed away that week.
Yeah.
And so I picked 2 of his songs and I learned them. And at 5:30 California time, I just did them as a Facebook Live. I'd never done it before. I was horrified on how to do it. But I was starting to see other musicians doing that.
Right.
And so I wanted to be a part of it, only because I just thought, I mean, we're all on the same playing field. You can't do it in a big fancy studio.
Yeah.
It's going to broadcast through your phone. I mean, that's the way it goes.
That's it.
So no matter who you are, because that's kind of the format Facebook had. So, and then it was I had 3,000 views.
Wow.
And I was just like, and that was just, overnight. And I was just like, maybe
there's something I should
do this. So I did one the next week, 3,000 views. And I've done, last night I had done my 8th Facebook Live concert, and they're great to do. I mean, it's given me something to focus on.
Yeah.
And the cool thing about this is we've been using, my partner, my husband actually is a phenomenal artist. And he's a painter. And so a lot of my performances have been in front of his original paintings.
Oh, wow. I saw some of that. Yes, I saw actually a couple of, because I did see, I think 2 weeks ago, I saw one of your, when we booked, I was checking you out and I saw one of your shows and I saw the artwork. So that's amazing. That's awesome.
It's amazing. And every week we've changed it up because we just, you read the comments and you start listening to you're getting free advice from, hundreds of people.
Yeah.
And they all mentioned his paintings. So we started realizing, that should be a part of this show.
Sure.
So that's what we've been doing. And sometimes we just switch rooms. Like I did one in front of the fireplace because it looked really cool to do that. And we weren't really debuting any sort of art from him that week. And the one I did last night was just in this really cool room. It didn't have a lot of his artwork in it, but he had all of his collectible things. And it was a really beautiful room. I mean, everybody commented on, wow, we're so glad you did it here, because it was completely different from anything I've ever done, which is good. If you can switch it up after 8 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And it's sort of like you're touring,
well, we call it touring in place.
Yeah.
It's touring in place. Alternate Route magazine started, kind of, that's what they called it, touring in place.
Touring in place. Yeah, I love that. It is something that you've been seeing a lot of artists kind of realizing that they can get that type of attention, with that they didn't realize that you can go out and from your home get 3,000 views on a video, where it's really hard for people. I think, I mean, it is with music, with when you're performing, you got to invite what is it, like 2,000 people to just get like 100 to show up or 200 to show up, whatever the statistic is. But I remember when I was out there playing, it was kind of like that. You just had to kind of get, and this was before internet and all that stuff. So
Right.
it was really, really different, you know. So right now it seems like there's so many tools available to us, you know, and I think a lot of the younger bands are not taking as advantage to it because they kind of grew up with it, and I think they take it for granted to some degree. Not all of them, but some of them. They go on it and they're good with it, but they don't really utilize it to expand their art, you know. And I think the us older musicians and performers, I think we kind of like realize the value of this because we were there when there was literally postcards and taping your flyer to the posts. And so we've seen that both sides, you know, putting your ads in the Village Voice, you know, that was like, you know, remember that when you see it in the back, you're like, oh, it's right there in the Village Voice. You know, we're playing, you know, CBGBs or Kenny's Castaway or something. And those kinds of opportunities are just, you know, we can't really just forget about them. You know what I mean? We can't. It's in our universe. So now with this new medium, it's just a great thing to have. So I'm so happy that you're doing that. That's so great. Is that something that you're going to continue doing after we're paroled?
I mean, listen, I want to get back to live audiences again.
Yeah.
But because I started to realize, you know, I started watching different ones going on. And, you know, the big, huge stars, you know, they don't want to do it because, you know, here's the thing. As a performer, and you know this, and now you're doing these interviews, no matter what you're doing, you want to be at your best.
Right.
And with this format, you'll never be at your best because you're using just a simple cell phone right here. This little tiny little speaker is what the whole concert. And, you know, that's, I know I'm not at my best, but I mean, it also, I think people get that. And I don't know if I'll continue to do. I mean, it's worth thinking about. I mean, I don't know. I didn't know I was going to be doing this. So I guess never say never, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Well, you know, one of the funny things that when this first started, I started seeing real artists, and not to knock any artist, but musicians that can go out there with a guitar and do it like yourself. So I saw this clip with Paul Simon, right? And he was literally in this weird hallway with no lighting. I don't even know why he chose that spot, but there was nothing behind him. It was just a wall, and he was with his guitar, and he did "Hello Darkness, my old friend," you know.
Oh wow!
Just him, and it was like amazing. You know, I saw the same thing with Nora Jones. She was just in her house. Lighting was bad. The camera was all at a weird angle, and on the piano, she just did a bunch of her songs, and it was just great. I saw also what's his name, David. Forgot his name. Dave Matthews, with his guitar, did a great thing just in his house in the dark kind of room and stuff, and it was such a great thing to see that. But the difference is you cannot be. And I'm not gonna name the big arena artist, single artist. But it's very difficult for them to come on here with no flashes, no lights, no smokes, no dancing girls. You know what I mean? It's literally, this would be it. My guitar and that, you know, and there are not that many performers when you realize that can do that, you know, can just capture an audience with just their body and their instrument.
It's leveled the playing field.
It really has. It really has.
You know, because everyone's doing it the exact same way I am. The thing about these shows, though, the reason they're so different from a live audience is you know, when it's live, you're using that, you know, what's going on in the room to talk about or to discuss, or someone's there and you can, in between songs, that's how you're creating the banner. You're creating the banner around what's happening where people are. So it makes sense.
Right.
And I noticed, like, when I see a lot of these, it'd just be like dead air between songs, or the guy would be like, I don't know. So, you know, I have a writing background, and an acting background too, you know, as an actor. And so I I started making myself notes. I think on my second one, I started like making myself notes. Oh, before this song, I definitely want to do this, or I want to show the album cover, for records. So I would have the CD ready to, to show, and just have it more like it's almost like a show, like a variety act or something like that,
Yeah, I mean, it really is like a show. And I when those that actually are doing exactly what you're doing, that comes through. People see that they're taking their time for this. They're actually putting effort into this. It's not just a Instagram story, really quick 10 seconds thing. It's an actual show, and I think that it's going to get probably bigger and bigger. I think more artists are going to just have this as another thing to do. So between tours, every weekend they'll just go live for an hour and do some songs. I know that John Mayer goes live on every Sunday night at 10 o'clock. I guess 10 o'clock my time, but I guess he's over there and he's in California. I guess 7 o'clock over there. And he just literally does a show. He writes material, comedy material. The other day, I think he's losing his mind a little bit because he had a puppet and he was practicing his ventriloquism, but because everybody had masks on, because he had a mask on, so he was like, he's really good now,
That's great.
Yeah, and then he takes out his guitar and he'll do some songs, and but he's developed it into an actual entertaining show, and I think that's what it's going to take. It's going to take.
I think that's what it takes.
Yeah, it definitely is what it takes. So let's talk a little bit about your past musical background. You've played. You had a couple of bands that I know you were playing with. Tell me a little bit about your early days of playing and what was that like, and what kind of shows you did and stuff like that.
I mean, my very first show I ever did was I went to Baldwin Wallace College, and it's a performing arts kind of school, and so I put together this Beatles recital where we talked about the Beatles. We split them up in 3 periods, and that was my very first performance. My buddy and I would talk about like the Beatles, and then I'd get up on stage and I'd perform 3 songs from that period with the band, and then I'd come down and we'd be at the podium talking about the next part of the Beatles. And then after I graduated college, so that was in college to get a grade. So I think my professor wrote A+++ because she was a huge Beatles fan. so that was kind of that's where I really got the taste of performing and like putting a show together, because behind us we had these huge slides like going on. We had this huge screen behind us, so it's like we're up on stage playing, and John, George, Paul, and Ringo are, just doing great things. And so, then after that, I just got hooked, and I started a band called Uncle Salty, and we did all Zeppelin and Aerosmith and Black Sabbath and, Joe Walsh and all rock stuff, Steppenwolf. And I toured every VFW around the Tri-County area, got my feet wet. But then I started writing music. And writing, I was always a poet, so I always wrote a lot of poetry, and that's really why I learned to play guitar, because I just couldn't run around the house singing. So, so it was cooler with a guitar. So I learned how to play just for that. But yeah, and then I started writing music and changed the name of the band to Peace Tree, and Peace Tree was. I had a couple versions of that band, but I had a kick-ass version of it, and that was the band that got to play with like Motley Crue and Styx and Ratt and Jackyl and Cinderella and just all these.
Cinderella, wow.
Yeah, they were phenomenal.
They were great. They were like,
amazing. I mean, it was a little bit after their like, huge, but they were still, selling out 3,000, 4,000 seat places, which was, for us. So we got a great kind of thing opening up for those bands, and that's how we made our reputation.
Wow!
And I think we did 4 or 5 records with that band.
Yeah. Wow. Now, did you were you the lead singer of that band?
I was the lead singer and I played rhythm guitar. Yeah.
Wow, that's so cool. Now
Yeah.
you mentioned right before you had mentioned Janie, right?
Janie Lane from
Janie
Warren.
Lane. Yeah, from
Yeah.
Warrant, and that was a really great band too. I mean, you know, it was sort of it was an interesting era, right? Because these were like great bands, but they had to play these songs that did not get, they got a lot of airplay, but they didn't get the
Right.
respect from the musicians, you know, as musicianships,
Yeah.
until you heard the band's album, until you really heard the band or you saw them live or something. You're like, holy crap, these guys are freaking phenomenal. You know, it
Yeah.
was like that with, for me, what's the band that played Extreme?
Oh yeah, Nuno
Extreme.
Betancourt on guitar.
I mean, because they're so well known for like this ballad thing, you know, more than
Right.
words, right? A great song, right? Fantastic song.
Yeah.
But they're known for that one ballad song. And then when you see this guy play, the whole band
He's
is like sick. I mean, they're just
he's a
so
monster.
so phenomenal. Um, does that at that time when you were performing and opening for these guys, I mean, the play, it was at the height of I mean, I guess until 90. But until when was it Nirvana came out? I guess it was on 90, 91, whatever it was. But up to that point,
Right.
that was
Alice in Chains kind of pushed it.
Yeah.
Chili Peppers started pushing it.
That's right.
Nirvana, Pearl Jam, yeah, all that. You know,
Soundgarden.
Soundgarden.
Yeah.
You know, the great thing about playing with those bands when I did was, like you said, some of these bands were known for a couple things. Like Bon Jovi discovered Cinderella for the couple hair, glam songs that Cinderella had. But let me tell you, Cinderella was an unbelievable, awesome blues band.
Yeah, I had yeah, I know. I had one of their records. I would never even listen to the stuff that was on the radio. I would, because it was all over the radio. It's like, I wasn't really interested in that. But yeah, you're right. So it was a little bit afterwards, I guess.
Yeah, and it was great because I kind of just got to know them like as just, they were kind of way past, I don't mean to say way past their heyday, because I don't think you ever have a heyday, but it was way past their, millions of album sales.
Right.
So yeah, man, I mean, it was great getting to kind of just see them do things. Listen, the Cinderella, those guys, Bobby LaBar and Tom Kiefer would pull up bar stools and these old beat up acoustic guitars, and you should have heard them jamming blues and stuff. Just those two guys.
Wow.
I mean, and that's legit. And Tom Kiefer just happens to sing like he sings. I mean, that's his voice. Yeah. He wasn't like an effects, studio trick guy. So yeah, it was great getting to, do that.
That's so awesome. Let me ask you about your songwriting. When you approach a song, do you get inspired? And this is a question that I think a lot of songwriters get asked, and I'm going to ask it too. But what comes first for you? Is it you have an idea for a song, or you play a melody and you're like, I hear that, or somebody says a line and you think, hey, that'd be a good idea for a song or a good foundation for a song? Or is it an emotional thing, or do you wake up with it, or do you dream it like Paul McCartney dreamt yesterday or something?
Yeah. I've never been fortunate enough to have a dream of a song, but I'm still waiting.
Hey, you know what? Why not? It could happen any day.
For me, it's, I would, and I don't really get ideas because I'm not really good at like arranging in a sense, or like composing that way. I'm more of like a songwriter. Like, I mean, I might come up with a great chorus and verse and have lyrics for all of it, and then a producer comes in and is like, you have to write a bridge for it, or we need another verse or whatever. That's my songwriting is rough, in a sense that I can produce other people's materials, but my own, I just can't do it. But my songwriting would come from, usually I'd be playing a guitar, and that would send sort of emotion through me on what sort of dynamics this song was going to have guitar wise. And then rest of the band wise, instrumentation wise, and that would kind of throw me on where these lyrics need to go.
Mm.
So, and sometimes I did have lyrics. I would look back on some of these lyrics and go, man, I really haven't found any music to put with these lyrics because, I mean, I feel like the lyrics are just an extension of the song.
Right.
So they have to be consistent. And I always hated just trying to jam these lyrics into these songs. I was not good at.
Yeah, that's not good for anybody to do that. You can't really get you can't get the words to, that's not a good thing to try to do.
Yeah.
I heard a few tracks from Better Man from your album. Now you produced, you wrote those songs, I think.
Yeah.
And those were great. So
thanks.
So you definitely have the ability to do it. I know what you mean about the engineer or a producer, I should say. The producer on that, I can't remember his name now, but I think you did like a bunch of records with him, right?
Yeah. My first solo record, I was solo by then. So my first solo record, Dave Brooks produced, who was a good friend of Janie Lane's.
Oh, okay.
From Warren. And after that, it was Matt Cleary. Matt Cleary had produced a record for me, but he'd engineered the early Peachtree stuff.
Oh, okay.
He'd played guitar on some stuff. So I knew Matt, but never as a producer, though. That wasn't his capacity until that record. And he wanted to do it. He said, I really want to produce this record. And I was like, you'd be the perfect guy. You've known me for, 15 years now.
Yeah. I mean, the songs were great, and the band was fantastic. You mentioned earlier that Janie Lane actually used the band.
Those were my studio guys. And they played in Janie Lane's solo record, Down to One.
Wow.
And they're great players. I think Kevin DeBro used them for Quiet Riot for a tour or two. Yeah. I mean, they take it real seriously. I mean, they want to be studio guys, and they're worthy. Akron's full of great musicians.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Akron is full of everything. I mean, if you want a metal guitar player, I've got the guy. If you need a guy that plays like Paul Gilbert, believe it or not, or Nuno Betancourt, or any of those guys, I've got him.
Yeah.
I know a bunch of great bass players, drummers. I mean, it's a great music scene. I'm proud to be from there. I think being from there helped me, because every night I'm getting on that stage, even if it's in Akron, Ohio. It's the same thing. You've got to, whether it's there playing in front of 300 people, or if you're, opening up for Motley Crue playing in front of 5,000, you've got to plug in and do it.
Yeah.
And you learn that in Akron, because if you're not a good band, there's 10 other bands back here that will be glad to take these Friday nights you're getting.
Yeah. Two things that I wanted to mention. One, I don't want to go too deep into this one, but Janie Lane unfortunately had his rough time that he had. Did you see, because it's such a strange, for me it's such a strange thing for an amazing vocalist and somebody who you see who had just such joy and pleasure on the screen and the videos, and Cherry Pie is just such a fun silly fun song, but it's just like it's so sincere, you know what I mean? It's just very sincere. And then for something like that to happen, what's your experience like, having been on the road and having seen a lot? What's your experience with that? Not to go too deep and not to go too dark, but did you see anything like, was it something that you see a lot of? Or that
you definitely see it. I mean, I'm not going to give any band names, because that's not what we do. But I mean, there were a lot of times bands would be looking for their musicians at sound check. And I mean, like, it's a horrifying feeling, but
Yeah.
I mean, these weren't new experiences for
No,
them.
yeah. I mean, it's been going on for quite some time.
And, you know, I mean, yeah, you do see that. I mean,
Yeah.
listen, I think one reason I got through all this was because I was sort of forced to wear a lot of the hats. So like
Mm,
I'd have to go to the production meetings with like, Motley Crue, or, you're going to the production meetings and, you can't be strung out and you can't be, I didn't have like a touring manager that would go take
right.
care of those things and a production guy, and you don't bring your own sound man.
Right.
They need to do things easy, especially in venues like that. So they keep it simple, but you've got to be on time, and you've got to be dependable, because same story as being in
Yeah.
Akron, Ohio. If you can't be on my stage in Louisville, Kentucky tonight on time, there's 100 bands that will be in Lexington, Kentucky tomorrow
Right.
in your
Exactly.
place.
Right.
So, I mean, I think I had to grow up quick, and
Yeah. Yeah.
I was a huge whiskey drinker. So, I
Mhm.
mean, you have to cut back, and you have to, be responsible. My band, they weren't, but I didn't need them to be, but they were
Yeah.
dependable on time. Like when I'm like, listen, we need to be there at 5:30, they were there at 5:30.
Right.
So up until 5:30, I don't even want to guess what was going on.
Right.
But at 5:30, they were there. And so that's all we cared about.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you hear all the behind the music episodes and all that stuff, so you know a lot of stuff is going on. But
Yeah.
so I mean, thank you for sharing that. Did while you were in that transition, from going from a band to a solo
Mm.
career, did it take? What was that transition like for you? Was that a
That
difficult
was
thing?
a dark transition for me.
Really? Wow. Wow.
Um,
Also,
well, because I was probably, and I knew that I was going to be walking away from the most successful lineup and probably the most talented lineup I had played in. We were together for, I think, 7 or 8 years at that point, and done 3 records together. And our videos, or our music, started to be on videos for these motorcycle guys that would run from the cops, and their friends would film it, and they were called the Star Boys.
oh,
So, we started getting some notoriety because they're selling millions of these videos,
wow.
and our music's on it, and a lot of, so I knew I was walking away from something. I mean, the thing is, it's hard to be together in a band that long. And my bass player also had the opportunity to go play with Firehouse,
Oh, wow.
and he's still there today as their bass player,
There you
Alan
go.
McKenzie. And I knew I was going to be walking away from that, and trying to go solo. I loved the guys I was with. I mean, we had a certain chemistry. I love the way my guitar player played, and it took a long time for us to kind of, you get used to each other. We come from way different backgrounds. I was a huge Beatle guy, and he's a huge like Dream Theater fan.
Oh, wow.
And
That is
he
a different
never
world.
understood a lot of the earlier music, because the progressive guitar playing is what attracted him to music. I was
Right.
more attracted to melody and things like that.
Right.
So, but we put it together. We knew that those differences were our strengths, and
Mm.
so we wrote some great things together, all of us. But Dave Brooks was like, "Look, you've still got a lot to say as a musician, and I can put together a studio band. I can produce this record." Because I'd worked with him in the Peachtree days too.
Right.
So that's what we did. He produced the very first "Naked Against the Blue Sky" was
Mm.
my first Elijah Black record.
Wow.
And so after that, I got more I got more comfortable. I got used to playing with different guys, and it took me a while though.
Yeah. Yeah. Was it a confidence issue, or just the fact that, I guess, because it's all on you and now you don't have the players there, or were you the only songwriter at that point, or?
Well, I did all the lyrics and I did all the melodies,
Okay.
and I wrote a lot of the music. But again, Sean and I started to put our music together, and it was like we'd have these, just ripping verses, and I would write this, completely melodic chorus, and we knew that was working for us.
Yeah.
And it kind of pushed him to, like, no boundaries, just go. Like, we don't have to be just this kind of band. I mean, I know you like more of the progressive stuff, do it. You like that guitar playing, do it.
Yeah.
But the first two questions you asked are almost the same. Did I have any was it confidence? And I was not as confident because I didn't have those guys. So that's some keen insight on a great question from you. Yeah, I was a little bit shy because, Al McKenzie, my bass that was playing bass, him and I also did all these beautiful harmonies together. And I'm like, well, where's my Al McKenzie going to be?
Right.
And, but it all worked out. Dave Brooks was a lead singer in another band and a phenomenal singer. So, but it's different, and it's hard. Just like you said, it's just the difference made it, a little scary at first.
Sure. That makes sense. You mentioned the melodic with the progressive, and I couldn't help to think of Rush for a second, just because I kind of, they do have that progressive. I mean, they are considered a progressive band,
sure,
or were, but Geddy Lee has a pretty melodic voice, and a lot of the songs are melodic. So I do believe that is actually a really good combination of songwriting with with a lot of melody and lyrics, and then you got a progressive kind of a. So that is actually a really great combination, I think, because I think progressive singing. I don't think, like I don't even know what that sounds like, but you never really hear about a progressive band.
Right.
They don't dissect the lyrics as much or the melody lines as much. They just say, well, that's progressive rock. But then you listen to like bands like Yes.
Exactly.
Incredible melodies, but very progressive,
Right.
So that to me is a great combination. I'm going to actually start looking up a lot of your music.
That's funny you say that, because both those singers you mentioned both have like ranges.
Oh, really?
Oh man. I mean,
yeah.
Geddy Lee, not anybody can sing Geddy Lee.
No.
And
That's
hardly anyone can sing. Hardly anyone, yes, my gosh, man. I mean, now, who could do both was Al McKenzie, my bass player. That's why I was, another reason I was just a little worried about it all going on, but he sang like both those guys.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, there you have it when it comes to those vocal. I didn't really realize it, but yeah, they have these very, very high voices. And I think Geddy Lee, to his credit, was able to. I mean, he's a phenomenal just bass player, singing and the keyboards and all the stuff going on there. He's like cooking on the side. He's got a little.
I know.
Making pancakes. All the stuff he's got going on at once. He's phenomenal. But one of the things he was able to take, very complicated, because you mentioned about lyrics and trying to squeeze lyrics into a song, and that's like really difficult. But imagine receiving Neil Peart's lyrics, which are incredibly wordy. You know what I mean? And then trying to find a melody that's going to go with it and making it work somehow. It's really. I sometimes listen to those songs and I'm thinking to myself, how did they ever come up with or why did he write? How could he write thinking that this is going to be melodically put into a song? But somehow they made it work. So I'm curious about that whole. The science of it is very fascinating to me.
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say it's fascinating because you've got the drummer writing the lyrics.
Yeah.
And and only because, Geddy Lee was doing everything else. Like,
Right.
He's playing all these keyboard parts and everything with his feet as he's,
Playing and singing.
and he's a very active bass player. I mean, they were a 3-piece band. So, I mean, he's very active.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. He's not like just hitting single notes here. He's doing like full out chords and a lot of lot of tapping and pulling. I've seen them play live. I've seen that band like so many times in the last 25 years.
Yeah.
They were just phenomenal to see. So I'm glad I got to experience that. Is there any artist that when you were growing up, now you mentioned the Beatles, so I know the Beatles.
Yeah.
Any single artist that you say, that I kind of really inspired you?
I mean, I was a huge Springsteen fan too. I went to a concert. My brother that we talked about took me to a concert, and I think I was like 13 or 14 years old.
Oh man.
So, I mean, and it was at the Cleveland Coliseum.
Wow.
So there were, 80,000 to 100,000 people there. And, first of all, there's no opening band. He just comes out and he starts and never stops. He takes an intermission. But after that intermission, I just remember during a song called Jungle Land. I don't know if you're a huge Springsteen fan.
I know a lot of the music.
But he crawled up the speakers all the way to the top of the Coliseum where they would play. It was a professional basketball arena. So, it was a huge arena in Cleveland. And he climbed up the top and is standing on top of the speakers. Clarence Clemens is playing a sax solo. Springsteen's up there with a guitar. I was blown away. I was blown away. And when that's your first concert,
yeah,
the second concert, you see that guy's gonna get screwed.
Right. No that poor guy.
It's like don't be the band that plays after Metallica. Don't be that band.
Don't be no. You don't want to do that. It's the famous story of Pete Townsend and Jimi Hendrix arguing backstage. Nobody wants to open for nobody. Nobody wants to come after each other.
Right. Everyone wanted to open.
I'm going first. He goes, no, I'm going first. No, I'm going.
Right.
They had a huge argument, and Pete Townsend won the argument, saying, he goes, I don't care. I'm going first. So Hendrix says, well, if you're going on first, then I'm going to pull up all the stops. And that was one of the first times he burnt his guitar, and he threw the guitar. And so it was like he had to do something to really upstage those guys. So it was a pretty interesting thing. But yeah, I also saw Rush once, and I had the band Mr. Big opened for them.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Billy Sheehan.
Yeah, Billy Sheehan. Yeah, amazing bass player. Ridiculous. The whole band was really fantastic, but poor guys. People are just ignoring them. Some people are going like this to them, and it was so bad. I felt so bad because they were really great musicians, and Billy Sheehan came on. He did his amazing bass solo and stuff, just incredible. But they were there to see Rush, and so it's just a rough gig all around. So let's talk a little bit about your upcoming projects or anything that you can think about. I know you're doing now the Friday nights. Why don't we talk about that a little bit?
Sure.
What do you have set up? Do you have particular, are your shows going to be geared towards a particular artist or a genre of music? Are you going to change it up?
Yeah, I've done 8 of them. Mm-hmm. So the first one was a tribute to Bill Withers. And then the second one I did was just an all original one. I pulled out some Peachtree stuff and some Elijah Black stuff. And so my second one is an all original stuff, all original concert. Mm-hmm. And then the third one's, I just started pulling out covers that I like or learning covers. I learned some Paul Simon because I'm
nice.
Yeah. And then if songs, if they meant something, because I told you how important it was to try to, I don't know, they're not really storyteller concerts, but they're concerts with stories, I guess
Yeah,
is
yeah,
the best way to say it.
yeah.
So like songs that meant something to me, like I did Pink Floyd, I did Wish You Were Here, because that was the first song I ever got up in college and sang with a band.
Oh,
I
wow.
was bartending at a place, and the band knew me, or I knew the band, and so they said, you should come up and sing "Wish You Were Here" with us sometime. So I went and rehearsed with them
Nice.
that week, and I did it. I was like, okay, I did it. It was my first time, so I told that story, and then I just pick songs or learn songs, or people will request a song, like. Someone wanted to hear a classic Paul Simon song, so I already knew 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover, and then I learned Loves Me Like a Rock.
Okay.
That's a great song to play.
Yeah.
And then I sprinkle some originals all through it, and I always end with a song called Believe that I wrote. It's funny because my mom was like, I love that song, and I think the first concert I was talking about because it was the Corona thing was just happening, everybody was just on lockdown. So the lyrics in that song I end with, be kind, be love, and believe, or is how I end the song lyrically. And so my mom said, that's really important. You should say that to everybody. And so I was like, okay, Mom,
All right, Mom.
She was right. She was right. So
yeah, absolutely.
Well, the next week I wasn't going to do the song, and she found out about it and was like, I think it's a mistake. I think you should do that song. And so I actually ended up doing that song. Now I've done that song to end. I do the song Believe ends all 8 of my Facebook Live concerts.
No, that's awesome.
It's a song I wrote. So.
Yeah, I think that's an important. I think a lot of artists, they'll come out, they'll do their new material, some older stuff, maybe some covers, and then they'll always end with with something that kind of identifies them and their song. Even in the I think in the really old days, like Bob Hope, he always came out to thanks for the memories, and what was it? The other comedian came out with the bullhorn. What's his name? Don Rickles. They all have their themes, So I think that's freaking awesome. Yeah. And those are on Friday nights.
Friday nights. They're 5:30 Pacific time, 8:30 Eastern time.
Eastern time. That's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome. So go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, and I've been doing them, every Friday until we can start performing live again.
Yeah. We'll see. I mean, it looks like there is a light at the end of the tunnel now. We're seeing it, and little by little, with precaution and making sure that we take the proper, follow the protocols and all that. I think we'll be done. We'll be out soon. So that's exciting to hear that. I was gonna ask one question that I usually ask my guests is, do you remember a specific time that you had a challenge, an obstacle that you had to overcome, that you overcame that obstacle, and that you felt like, wow, this is something that if I can do this, I think I'll be okay, and as an artist, there's a lot of challenges that fall into that basically barricade us in some way and stop us from moving forward. And everyone, not to be general, but a lot of artists run into that at some point, do you remember anything like that you ran into, that you overcame, that you can share with us? It doesn't have to be obviously too personal, but like share with us that might maybe help another artist that's out there kind of going through maybe a similar thing.
Well, I mean, it's I've been doing this like close to 30 years. So every few years, something like that happens. I mean, switching bands when you're in something successful, I really thought like my career was done. before I went to the solo thing. So, I mean, I guess if I was giving a musician advice, I would say, think of why you got into this in the first place. Was it because you love writing songs, or you have something to say with your poetry and you want those lyrics to do something? Or is it really that you just love getting up and performing in front of people? I would say that should always be, like, for me, it was about the performing. The other things worked out, but for me, it was really, I hated recording. I hated that sterile environment. I hated being under that microscope.
Yeah.
It was just, for me, that's not a great environment.
Yeah.
Musicians love it. I know that, and they thrive there. But for me, it was really about performing and connecting with the people one-on-one. And that's really, so whenever I get stuck, that's where it's like, okay, well, how are you going to entertain people?
Right.
And that's kind of how I started doing these Friday night things. Really, that's what I would tell them. Find out what why you're doing it, and do it.
Yeah. You have to go back to basics. You have to go back to what was your purpose for doing it in the first place. For me, it was just playing. I just loved to play. I mean, as a kid, I would just sit there in the house where I was raised by my grandparents. They were really worried because I would not go out. I'd just be home playing for 10, 12 hours at a time. And it didn't feel like that. I'd forget to eat and all that stuff. So that's definitely the thing. Another thing, you mentioned something about the studio, which is so true, because I hated being in the studio. I found it so boring. I found it to be, also, it's not, and I just thought of this right now, actually, it's not a natural state. Performing is natural, right? Performing's been going on for thousands and thousands of years, right? During the pyramids, there was some guy that would get up and, and somebody would do something, juggle or whatever it was. And that's just natural. But being in the studio, expecting to record and waiting for somebody to hit the record button and say, okay, you're on, do it great now.
Right.
It's not a natural thing to be part of. I know that that there's a science behind it. And as you get, these big performers, they get into the studio and they got producers that understand certain things, and they piece together albums from little tiny things. They put it together, and they use, Pro Tools, and they chop it up and they glue it, and they make albums, and to me, it's like, that's not an album. You know what I mean? You had a jigsaw puzzle, To me, a live album is always like, when an artist has a live album coming out, I'm excited, because I know that's just them.
Right.
That's them playing, for the hour and a half that they're playing, and that's it, and that's what I love about live. I listen to almost everything I listen to is 99% is actually live music, just live albums and stuff. So I totally understand the studio thing. No, definitely, you're not alone on that one.
I mean, there's guys like Todd Rundgren that it's a studio album, but they play it live. I mean, he would go to a theater somewhere and rent out the theater, and he'd have all of his, 20 plus musicians on stage. And it was a studio album, but he approached it more in a live manner.
And I think Pearl Jam, did that. They didn't want to have that restraint, you put the drums down first, and then you go back in and do the guitars, and another guitar. I'm like, wait, what? I'm like, I hated that.
In our early days, in the early days, it was my studio, so I was engineering it, and producing it. And I mean, by the time I got the song out, I hated the song, and guess what? Now I only have to go perform it 1,000 times to promote the record. So that wasn't, but you have to do it.
You have to do it. Yeah.
So, you get good in the studio. I mean, it's not like I wasn't good in the studio. My producer, Matt Clary, would always say, I put you through a Rockstar 101 class, which was vocally, when he might just make me sing, one line 100 times until there's
just
something
that right inflection.
I mean, so, you know, and I just got good at it. You just get comfortable and you just like, you don't get, you know, freaked out and you don't get frustrated.
Yeah.
And, you know, you kind of learn how to do it. It's a process like anything. I mean, you want to be an actor. Well, you better know how to sit down and read the script and learn that material and know it on a subconscious level.
Yeah.
Because when you step out on that acting stage or the sound stage or wherever you're cutting the scene that day, I mean, I've been through some horror stories there, let me tell you.
Yeah, yeah.
In the acting.
In the acting world?
Yeah.
Do you have one you can tell us right now?
I do. I was doing a live broadcast for the Meredith Vieira show. And she's got like a 300 person studio audience.
Yeah.
And so I was asked they were setting up this show with Bridget Moynihan from Blue Bloods. She's the DA. And they hired actors to come in and portray somebody and they had to guess if we were really that person or not.
Oh, okay.
So they asked me to come in and be Paul Bear Vasquez, rest in peace. He just passed away a week or so ago.
Oh, wow.
He's the double rainbow guy. The guy, his voice went viral on this double rainbow thing. He saw this double rainbow and was so overcome by it that his reaction got like 2 million hits on YouTube or something.
Wow.
Anyway, look it up. It's the double rainbow guy, Paul Bear Vasquez.
I'm gonna look it up.
They asked me to come on and portray him. So, but we didn't know what questions they were going to ask us. So I had to learn everything about this guy. I had 2 days. I had to Google him and Wikipedia him, and because I was going to be this guy, and I was going to come on stage, and Meredith Vieira, an investigative journalist, and Bridget Moynihan, who plays the DA on Blue Bloods, are going to ask me questions, and I have to convince them that yes, of course I'm this guy. Well, what I didn't know that they were going to do was play that video and then say, hey, in that same voice that was just on that tape,
oh no,
can you introduce Bridget Moynihan from being on Blue Bloods? You can YouTube this too. It's Bridget Moynihan on the Meredith Vieira show. Can you spot the fake? Is the name of the thing. Well, before we went on, they gave us the Screen Actors Guild. They gave us the contracts, and this girl was supposed to play. I'm not going to say the characters, but she was supposed to play this girl that we all know of because we're a certain age.
Okay.
And so, but this girl was a little girl at the time. But she was an actress that was going to portray her, and she didn't like the contract. And I kept telling her, listen, it's a standard principal contract. I've seen a million of these. Sign it. If you go over, you're going to get paid extra. And she was just like, well, I already know I'm going to go over because out there in rehearsal, they asked me a bunch of questions. And I go, yeah, but that's a producer. That wasn't Bridget and Meredith. And you never know. They may just ask you one question. Just sign the damn thing. Like, we're ready to go on in a half hour. And I'm trying to just relax. I'm trying to just breathe. I've got to go in front of a live studio audience here. And so I went out in the hallway and I'm just pacing. And the producer's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I just can't be in that green room right now. I have to concentrate. So he actually let me pace on the sound stage for Saturday Night Live, which was pretty awesome. That's cool. That's cool. So he's like, I'll come get you. I go, well, I'll be there. I'm not going to go anywhere from here. And he was like, just be on that stage. So I came out and did my part, and it was fantastic. I fooled them. They all thought I was that guy.
Nice.
She came out and couldn't remember who she was and was like, and it was,
well, that was her fear.
Yeah. So they had to cut her from the show.
Oh man.
I don't know if I'm allowed to tell that or not. I signed a contract, but I don't think I'll mind now. But I do want to say that's where Bridget Moynihan exclaimed her profound love for me.
Nice. Well, there you go.
I was taken, so I had to break it to her after
that. I
It
love it.
wasn't for me, by the way. It was for Paul Vasquez,
Right.
who she thought I was.
She thought you were. Yeah. Oh,
Anyway, so that was, that's always something too. Concentrate and
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's definitely a part of the game where you have to, like we always. I don't think people really realize the quiet time. Like you need like this quiet time where you have to focus on the art that you're trying to create, whether it's a
yeah,
script, a song, poetry, whatever it is. There's this quiet time. Nobody ever sees that. They see the product and they think, oh, that's not that hard, or they might think, that that's not or it made it seem easy. Like people will say that, oh, you make it seem so easy, and it's not easy. It's just that there's a lot of this going on and quiet time, and just trying to figure things out, but when you're an artist, that's your responsibility, really. It's to work on the art, to work on, to make it, to make sure that you actually are being an artist. We talk about be, do, have. People
Mhm.
want to, they want to do so then they can have, so then they can be. I'm like, it don't work like that. You got to
Right,
be the artist. You got to do the work, and then you will have the success. And
right.
that to me is an important thing. So Elijah, I want to thank you so much. Do you have any final words to give your audience where they can? I know they can find you now on Friday nights at 5:30 Pacific time. I'm going to put all the description, everything to find you is going to be in the description on the YouTube channel. I'll put
Okay.
it on the Facebook as well. Do you have any last words to tell your audience, your fans?
No, I just want to say how they've helped me with these Friday night shows so much. Their questions, their comments are awesome. I
Awesome.
love their requests. I look at every comment,
Mhm.
and I just want to thank them because this Friday night thing has really given me something to look forward to.
Yeah.
Like I said, I usually start writing the show Monday and Tuesday. Wednesday, making it more solid. Wednesday and Thursday, rehearsing the music, and the show Friday. So
Yeah. That's so cool. That's so cool.
it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna check it out on Friday. For here, it'll be, I guess, 5:30 there. So we're at. Wait, no, you're doing at 5:30 Pacific.
Right. I'm in California,
Right.
so
So
yeah,
here
it's
is
5:30 my time, 8:30 your time. And
6:30 here.
you can see the 8 other concerts I've done at the website Elijah Black there.
Yeah.
Just go to the media section, and there's a live video section, and you can see the rest of the 8, including the Bill Withers tribute, which was the very first one that kind of
Yeah. Start.
accidentally kicked this whole thing off.
Wow, that's so awesome. So Elijah, I want to thank you for your time. It was great talking to you. I hope you come back again when we. I don't know how long I'll be doing this, but I'm having fun right now doing this. So I'll probably keep this going for a while, just because it's just I'm having a lot of fun talking to amazing artists like yourself. So thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you. I'm going to put all the contact. Anybody out there, please. All his information is going to be down there, so you can check him out also at ElijahBlack.com. Thank you so much. Have a great night. Stay safe out there, and I will talk to you again very, very soon. Take
It
care,
was a
man.
real pleasure. Thank you, man.
You got it. My pleasure. All righty. So that was Elijah Black. That was so freaking cool. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I want to thank you for the last couple of weeks. Everybody's been really getting excited about this. I have a lot of guests coming up for the next month. June is almost completely booked. So I want to thank everybody for the support. It really means a lot to me, and I appreciate you all very, very much. So thank you so much. I'll stay tuned Monday again, and we have some new guests. I'll go on live at some point and tell you all the guests for the week coming up. And that is all for me, folks. Thank you very much. Take care and peace.